the next half an hour or more, we will be discussing, Dr. Swamy will be giving us China context. And the next half an hour or more, we will be discussing, Dr. Swamy will be giving us information, and my colleagues, Professor Arvind Chaturvedi and Ramesh Swamy, and myself, we will discuss with Dr. Swamy the broad parameters of this relationship with US in the China context. And I thank our technical team led by Ashish Shetty, led by Rakesh from Bangalore, Ishwar Iyer from Navi Mumbai, Tejas from Pune, Swaminathan from Chennai, and Mr. Vishal Mehta from Mumbai for helping us put this weekly program together. And I thank our viewers. And I would again like to tell our viewers that do visit our website of Virat Hindustan Sangam at www.vhsindia.org and register and support us to be members to take this movement of Dr. Subramanian Swamy forward. So with these words, I would now request Dr. Swamy to please tell us on this relationship with the US in the context of China. Over to Dr. Subramanian Swamy.
Thank you very much. I think first I must, before putting it in the context of China, let me first give a brief history of Indo-US relationship. And what we need to not forget in future dealings with the United States. The relationship since 1947 between the United States and India has gone through a series of flip-flops. In the beginning, in 1947, the United States was so well disposed to India that they made a number of offers to India. They offered the Marshall Plan type economic assistance, which transformed, as you know, they completely destroyed Europe into modern and Japan into modern economic nations. They also wanted to empower us, and they made an extraordinary proposal that China, the Chiang Kai-shek government had been reduced to a hopeless minority, and they, in fact, they had left the mainland and gone to Taiwan. So they are going to expel China from the Security Council with a veto holding. In 1945, when the great alliance partners, United States, Soviet Union, Britain, France, and China, at that time Chiang Kai-shek led China, assembled in Lake Success in New York to decide on the formation of the United Nations. Roosevelt was of the view that India should also be brought in the Security Council. But Churchill put his foot down and he said, no, it's a colony. And Churchill didn't know he was going to lose the elections. He said, no, it's a colony, and it's going to be a colony for a long, long time to come. And they can't sit in the Security Council. In 1948, Churchill lost the election subsequently in Britain, and Attlee came and India got independence. And the first thing the United States said to India in 1949 is that Mao Zedong has taken over China on a military coup, and therefore Chiang Kai-shek has become untenable. So we are expelling them, and we would like to offer India that seat, which India should have got in 1945 but couldn't because of those circumstances. Well, by the time the offer was made, Nehru had become all-powerful in India. Sardar Patel in 1950 passed away, and Mahatma Gandhi had been assassinated in 1948. And so Jawaharlal Nehru became all in all. And to his surprise, he declined it. And he said, I cannot come at the cost of communist China. It is the successor country, and therefore India will not accept to be a Security Council member. He didn't consult anybody, Jawaharlal Nehru. The offer was made by John Foster Dulles, then Secretary of State, to Vijayalakshmi Pandit, who was ambassador of India in Washington. She sent Jawaharlal a letter, and Jawaharlal then rebuked her, saying that why are you getting into all these high diplomacy and high world politics? You don't know this is a trap of the Americans and all that. And he rebuked her. And so the matter was forgotten. Now it's all very much documented. I had heard about it as far back as 1996 when I had gone public, and everybody laughed at me at that time. But now it's all very documented. And the Woodrow Wilson School has brought out a booklet or a paper in the form of a booklet on this, all the documents that they have managed to get by declassification of the State Department. So then Jawaharlal Nehru also told the Americans, we don't want your Marshall Plan type support, because we are going to go for 5-year plans, the Soviet imitation of 5-year plans. And of course, he had said to the Americans that in the Soviet Union, you see, it's a model for us, because there is no unemployment in Soviet Union, there is no inflation in Soviet Union, there is no poverty in Soviet Union. And of course, 1990, when Jawaharlal Nehru was not around, there was no Soviet Union also. It broke into 16 countries. So he adopted that model, which was a complete failure, produced a growth rate of only 3.5% per year, which the leftist economists like Amartya Sen called it the Hindu rate of growth, demeaning the Hindus once again. But it was clear to the Americans very soon that India was tilting towards the USSR and China, and they were together. China was the junior partner. And then the Korean War came, and there was an armistice there, and then India was put on a delegation, on a committee as a chairman, to discuss the terms and conditions of the post-war situation in Korea. And there Nehru took essentially tilted towards the Soviet Union and China in dealing with Korea, and Korea got partitioned into North and South Korea. So what happened then, the United States in 1953, or rather 1952, turned to Pakistan, because they wanted a presence in South Asia, and Pakistan was ready and available. And so they signed they made Pakistan a member of the CENTO, Central and East some treaty organization, nuclear treaty organization, or it was CENTO, it was called SEATO, Southeast Asia Treaty Organization. So Pakistan became an ally of the United States, and and then Americans pumped in money, weapons, and so on, and gave Pakistan a big place in the society. By then, the Americans also had begun to feel that India has gone firmly into the Soviet camp. In 1956, Hungary was invaded by Soviet Union to establish communist rule there. India supported the Soviet Union. The whole world in the United Nations condemned the Soviet Union. I'm giving you this background because whatever the prejudices that have worked over the years and still hang somewhere in the mind of the Americans is that we were never with the Americans when it mattered. And of course, they respect India as a democratic country. They respect India as largely as a free market now after Narasimha Rao's period. So when you are saying Indo-US bonding in the China perspective, you have to understand these past failures, and they should not be repeated. Um, Even recently, after Narendra Modi became Prime Minister, the Americans had made an offer: take over Afghanistan, and we will give you all the financing necessary for the operation, all the weapons you want, and we want to get out of Afghanistan. And India turned that down. And having turned that down, the Americans went to the Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis brought in the Taliban. So if Taliban tomorrow, I mean, there's still some time before the Americans disengage. But if Pakistan takes over, if Taliban takes over Afghanistan, then, and this Taliban is totally pro-Pakistan, then Taliban and Pakistan together play havoc. And now you see, in the context of China, Pakistan, Taliban, Iran, Nepal, it's a formidable combination, all in the fringes of India. And so you are going to get the United States to come in to help you to do what? Obviously, American troops are not necessary because we have enough troops. So you want the Americans to, give you advanced weapons, not just ordinary weapons, but advanced weapons. Then there's another new angle that is developed. Earlier on, I think about a year and a half ago, the Americans were willing to give you the most advanced jet they have produced: F-35, F-26, etc. And when they were discussing it, India went and bought a weapon which is used to attach to an aircraft called the S-400 from Russia. And this upset the Americans no end, because they expressed it to me, so that's why I'm telling you. I said, what's wrong if we shop all around? They said, you don't understand. The Russians are totally dependent on the Chinese for electronics, and S-400 has Chinese electronics, and therefore, number one, you will have to, for servicing, have the Chinese come and service it, or the Russians will ask the Chinese. And that means if the Americans give you technology, then these people spy on it, and we can't. It's a security problem. So they canceled that program of giving, in very concessional terms, these aircrafts, which are far superior to Rafale and other aircrafts. So what I'm saying today is, everybody says, "Oh, Americans are with us." Americans, yes, in a kind of cosmetic way, with us. They say they want us. They don't want to just forget India, but they try to get India into as much as close to them as possible. And if we fob them off, then there could be an administration tomorrow in the United States which would be of the view why we should take sides between India and China. And that would be Biden's government. Biden's government has already addressed Muslim groups in the United States, saying that we thoroughly disapprove of the present government in India, which is targeting Muslims. I don't know which any of you have seen it. I don't know whether Narayan Swamy Ramesh, who is very clued in, would have seen these statements of Biden. Perhaps at the question hour we can exchange notes. But the fact is that Trump is, whatever is his other problem, but as far as India is concerned, he is better than what Biden would be, or better than what the Democrats would be. And then we will be totally isolated. So the first thing we need to do is first find out what is it that will make the Americans convinced that they should help us. For that, a person like me and person like Ramesh and others who have lived in the United States, they would have a fair understanding. The American psychology is and not platitudes. How great democracy is, how we are together, how anything, how we know English, that sort of thing. They do business on the basis of what is called as give and take, and their own analysis, which is called cost benefit analysis. What does it cost them, and what is the benefit they get? So if you want the Americans to be forthcoming, open, you have to decide, what are you going to give, what are you going to take. If tomorrow you ask them for the most advanced weapons, they say, okay, we have not yet left Afghanistan, please send 20,000 troops to Afghanistan to help us reduce. They won't pull out completely, they'll say reduce, but you can deal with the Taliban. And your people have got a very good reputation fighting. And you can, with the help of the Afghan people, you can put the Taliban down and also keep the Pakistanis at bay. Of course, there will be casualties, but then we have had casualties now in Ladakh, but we can ensure that the families of our fallen soldiers are looked after so well that it ameliorates up to a point the loss of the head of the household. So therefore, they may say that. Then what do you say? Are you going to say yes or no? They may say that let our navies patrol together. They may say that when there is a war between, if the Chinese declare war to take over Taiwan, we want you to send troops. What are you going to say? So there are many things that we have to be clear in our mind what we can say. If you say no to something, then you have to give them something else, some other way. So you can't just simply say, oh, we are a democracy, you're suffering, so please give us this and all that. It doesn't work. So the handling of the US and keeping them on your side requires a great deal of sophistication. And it can't be done by being sycophants, because then the Americans will step on you. It can't be by bluff and bluster, because the Americans know exactly what you have and what you need. So I think the one thing that Indians will have to, particularly at the policy level, know how to deal with the Americans. Don't get carried away, oh, we are a strategic understanding partnership, Modi has become a world power, the kind of thing that our newspapers write rubbish. Americans are ready. American companies who are going to leave China and come to India. Yes, they're going to leave China, but they can't come to India, because all the American companies in China are people who are part of the value-added technology. What has happened in China is that after Deng Xiaoping came and took over, the Americans entered into a strategic partnership with China. They helped Chinese economy this way, that East Asian countries whose labor had become very expensive were told that, listen, you produce the basic structure of equipment, and the value added will be done in China with cheap labor, because that's the part where it is labor intensive. So the Lenovo, for example, is you produce the circuits, you do all the wiring, etc., or whatever, and electronics fitted in, and then they send it to on sale to China. China then in Shenzhen and in Guangdong and in Dalian, all these places where they have special parks, they have collaboration with the Americans to add value to it. So what they do, the keyboard is put by them, and then the screen of the laptop is put by them, and the case is put by them, and that is what Lenovo is. And then they put a stamp, made in China. Apple, of course, was the only company I know which said you can't put made in China, then otherwise we won't come to China. So Chinese agreed as an exception for Apple that they can say made in USA, even though much of what the iPhone is either assembled or produced in China. So we are not in any position to do this. East Asians don't want to come to us because of the regulatory factor. This is a harassment. Buying land means 7 years. Environment Ministry, this, that, all that. In China, it all went through like a knife, hot knife through butter. So I don't expect that the Americans will bring all their companies here. On the other hand, the Americans want companies to come here who want to take advantage of your cheap labor. So Walmart wants to come because all the food grains, etc., and vegetables, this, then all this is collected very cheap at a very cheap cost. They get capital in America from banks at 2% interest rate. It means the capital cost is very low, and so they set up a Walmart showroom here and start selling, and everybody's impressed with the air conditioning and the fancy look of it, or pizza house or something. These are the things that the Americans are very ready to come because they benefit by the cheapness of our labor. But the technological cooperation, don't expect too much. There are some things we do. On software, they were relying on our what we call as the blue collar coolies of our IT companies. But in terms of domain changes or design changes in computers, we are nowhere. We haven't produced a single thing. There's no Microsoft in India. I mean, the equivalent of Microsoft in India. But we produce very good, back channel or the software components for necessary, and we do have because that's all goes on imitation, and there's no innovational aspect in that. So therefore, I think when we say Indo-US relations, don't overdo this economic thing. The Americans will come. No American will go to dump money in India because they are all very professional, market-oriented people. It's a cost-benefit analysis that will be done. So, and then this euphoria comes in, and later on you find that it is not like that. Then people become bitter. So, in order to avoid that, Americans can help you in many things. When I was Commerce Minister, we were in a deep trouble on foreign exchange. We were going to default. And Chandrasekhar told me that I have no alternative but to default unless you come up with some solution. I didn't have any solution. We needed $2 billion, which by today's standards is about $20 billion. And to get $2 billion, all of a sudden, at such short notice, I said, it's not, I'll think about it, but I don't know whether I can do it. So he says, then of course I'll have to declare a default. Now, luckily, the American ambassador came to my room saying that he wanted India to help American planes coming from Philippines and going to Saudi Arabia to fight Saddam Hussein in Kuwait to refuel in India. And that's where I made a deal with them. All right, we'll consider changing our ancient policy, our time-tested policy of not giving bases to anybody, refueling, nothing in times of war. But we'll change that provided you get me $2 billion from the IMF without conditions. And the Americans immediately made that trade. And we got that $2 billion. And one of our VHS enthusiasts has sent me the New York Times cutting of 1991, where they quote me as announcing that the IMF loan is coming. So, and praising our government for being so practical and all that. So, the idea is to deal with the Americans not by fawning on them. They are not easily susceptible to flattery, which our people do a lot. They want give and take. You want something, give us something that we want, and that basis we go. And there, the technology transfer, where the intellectual property rights issues are not very prominent, although we have a very good record on intellectual property. Intellectual property is not so good. There we can get their technologies and set up companies to produce those things, not add value from East Asia and all that. But we can produce American products cheaply, and we have been losing steadily. For instance, on garments, it's all gone to Bangladesh now. It's we have done very poorly on this. So we have not benefited by the Chinese losing the production of garments through the West. So we have to very coolly say these are technologies we need, and we will pay the right price for it, or just bargain and say we can give you this cheaply and you give us this cheaply, that kind of thing. If you are going to do that, then of course it will be a way in which our economic cooperation can go. Second, we must help the Americans when they are in dire difficulties, like wanting to get out of some place. If they want to get out from Afghanistan, I think it's in our national security interests to protect Afghanistan from going to Taliban. There may be a lot of casualties, but we have to take those casualties and compensate the families to the extent that they don't feel completely miserable. Nobody can be happy if one's husband or one's father is being killed in war. But at the same time, the uncertainty of life that comes after that should be completely removed. And the Americans, on funding of that, will be very, very generous. Use that to get the weapons you want. And then deal with the Chinese, because in the Chinese, we need cyber warfare. And we need satellite mapping of what is happening in China, what's happening in Pakistan. The Americans have done a tremendous job on that. Intercepts of electronic communications, hard intelligence on terrorists, controlling the military and ISI in Pakistan to make them sit down and not go with China. If we are not there, then there's nothing for the Americans to be gained by telling Pakistan don't go with China. But if we become a partner, they can force Pakistan into not doing that. So then we can get allies of the United States like Indonesia and Japan to help us to make Malacca Strait as one of where we also have a stature in deciding, like in Suez Canal, who will go through, will not go through. 90% of the foreign trade of China goes through Malacca Strait. And if they can't send there, China will be sunk. So therefore, the Americans can help you get the Indonesians and the Japanese to assist you both in South China Sea as well as in Malacca Strait. That's another thing you can do. And we can get technology of desalination of seawater, how to convert, how to produce hydrogen fuel cells for automobiles, how to convert thorium into uranium 233 into reactor fuel. So these are the things that one more thing that we need to do with the Americans, and it can be done if we now come to the American help in Afghanistan and places like that, which are around in our area. And that is make the Americans withdraw their ban on agricultural products beyond a point from India. We can sell wheat, which is much cheaper than the American wheat. Of course, the agriculture in America would be affected, but the Americans can think of subsidies and things like that. Then we need to export in large amounts Bos Indicus milk. Already there's a big craze in America for Bos Indicus milk, and even supermarkets are now having cartons of which they procure in India through commercial means. Instead of that, we say, no, you remove your barriers to entry and let us send Bos Indicus milk from India. For that, we have to have cold storages, packaging, so many other things that need to be done. And we can be liberal with their, up to a point, for their drugs, which they want to sell in India, pharmaceuticals. And we can have many of these things done on what is called as the comparative advantage theory of in economics. Now, I also think that the Americans have a tremendous advantage in the teaching systems. Their tape recordings, their the electronic methods of disseminating knowledge, and so on. So our educational collaboration can overnight change the character of our schools from just being routine memorizing and so on into ways of thinking and so on. So the educational technology is something that is possible. So I would say, as far as China is concerned, what we need to do is teach China a lesson for a change. They've been saying they taught India a lesson. Now it's time for us to teach them a lesson. We have a huge advantage on logistics. We don't have enough weapons. And so the Americans can help us. The Americans and the Israelis can help us in mapping, in cyber warfare, and in interception of signals, and so many other things. And we need to push the Chinese out now all the way, because they have disrespected the LAC, the line of actual control. Although it is that it's not been, it's not a formalized thing, but it's mutually agreed, and they have broken that. So we need to push it. Remember one thing, that we and India and China had a lot of problems when Mao Zedong was all in all. When the leadership change took place and Deng Xiaoping came, what a difference it made. And so many things we got done. Even I could go to China and get Kailash Mansarovar opened. So I would say, don't say China. The present leadership in China of Xi Jinping and the military, PLA, as it's called, People's Liberation Army, they are the ones who have gone into this adventurism. And if India gives a devastating blow in the Aksai Chin area, then I think that there would be a leadership change inside China. And then we can have normal, good relations with China again, if the next leader has learned a lesson from what happened. So in the long run, India, China, United States are the three triangular arrangements, the triumvirate, if you want to call it, who can influence world affairs. And therefore, while becoming friendly or using the Indo-US relationship, let us not go overboard and become junior partners of the Americans. And but let's go do it on a case-to-case basis, on give and take, and then also see that we are vindicated in Kashmir, in Ladakh in particular, and establish ourselves as an equal to China in military power. And then, of course, the whole world calculus will change. And that should be the idea, not that, oh, the Americans are coming to help us, like PL 480. So Lal Bahadur Shastri said we can't go on waiting for ships from America to come all the time. And he came up, he put some people together, M.S. Swaminathan, C. Subramanian, took advice from the Philippine Rice Research Institute, from the Washington-based World Food Research Institute, and came up with this package and gave it to the 10% prosperous farmers who produced enough for us to become self-reliant. So we can do that in many big ways for our country, make India into an economic power with the help of the United States, not by begging them for money, not by allowing American companies to come and take over, but by borrowing their technology, buying their technology, and at the same time modernizing our army with the help of their modern weapons. This is how I would put it should be our Indo-US relationship in the context of China.
डॉक्टर स्वामी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने भारत और अमेरिका की जो स्थिति है उसको आपने पूरे परिप्रेक्ष्य में प्रस्तुत किया। अभी आपने कहा कि भारत, चीन और अमेरिका मिलकर एक त्रिभुज बनाते हैं, और जो भौगोलिक राजनीति है, इस भौगोलिक राजनीति में तीनों महत्वपूर्ण बिंदु हैं। अमेरिका आज सुपर पावर है, चीन आर्थिक शक्ति के हिसाब से नंबर 2 पे है, और अगर हम पीपीपी में गिने तो भारत तीसरी सबसे बड़ी आर्थिक शक्ति है। तो जाहिर है कि इन तीनों आर्थिक शक्तियों का आपस में कहीं न कहीं प्रतिद्वंदिता इतनी होगी कि टकराव होगा, तनाव होगा। और आज की जो पोस्ट वुहान स्थिति है, वुहान वायरस के बाद अमेरिका और चीन में तनाव है। भारत और चीन पिछले महीने तनाव देख चुके हैं। आपको कितनी संभावना लगती है आज की परिस्थिति को देखते हुए कि ये आपस की जो प्रतिद्वंदिता है कुछ युद्ध में बदलेगी? और जैसा कि लोग कहते आ रहे हैं कि अगर भारत, चीन और अमेरिका में आपस में कुछ तनाव हुआ, युद्ध हुआ, तो ये विश्व युद्ध में बदल सकता है। तो कितनी संभावना आपको लगती है कि एक विभीषिका की हम कल्पना करें, या होने वाला है या हो सकता है, इसकी क्या संभावना है?
देखिए, जहाँ तक ये हिंदुस्तान और अमेरिका है, उसमें प्रतिद्वंदिता आर्थिक जगत में है नहीं, क्योंकि हम लेबर इंटेंसिव देश हैं, वो कैपिटल इंटेंसिव देश है। हमारी लेबर को वो स्वीकार करने के लिए तैयार हैं कि वहाँ जो सड़क बनानी है या ड्रेनेज की जो ढक्कन है वो बनानी है, ये सारी चीज़ों को हम उनके लिए सस्ता बना करके दे सकते हैं, जिससे उनकी पब्लिक को भी राहत मिलेगी। अपार्टमेंट्स बिल्डिंग्स बनानी है, हमने तो बॉम्बे में दिखा दिया, हम कहीं भी बना सकते हैं। तो और उनकी जो है टेक्नोलॉजी जो है उसको, और जो इनोवेशन, जो नवीन तकनीकी के आधार पर बनती है प्रौद्योगिकी वस्तुओं की, उसमें हमारी एक मेल बनती है। जहाँ तक चाइना है, उसमें हम लोग, हमारी उद्देश्य तो इतना ही है कि चाइना को हम अक्साई चीन से खाली करें, और जो पीओके लेना है वो ले लें। उसके लिए हमें अमेरिका की साथ होगी, तो सारा यूरोप का भी लगभग साथ होगा, कम से कम यूनाइटेड नेशंस में। और जो हथियार अमेरिका देगी उससे, और इजराइल और अमेरिका दोनों मिलकर जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में मदद करेंगे, उसमें चीन हमारी मुकाबला नहीं कर सकती है, जहाँ तक हमारी सीमित उद्देश्य है कि हमारी ज़मीन को खाली करना है। और वो चीन भी हो सकता है भयभीत होकर तैयार हो जाएं आपको देने के लिए। तो मैं इसमें स्पर्धा तो होगी, वैसे तो अमेरिका और यूरोप का भी स्पर्धा है, बट वो स्पर्धा महायुद्ध पर परिवर्तित होगी ये मैंने नहीं दिखाई पड़ता है। जब तक चाइना किसी की देश में घुस ना जाए, या अमेरिका यानी ताइवान की सरकार को बीजिंग में थोपने के लिए प्रयास करेगी, या नॉर्थ कोरिया को बम से ध्वस्त करने करेगी, मैं नहीं समझता हूँ कि कोई महायुद्ध की स्थिति पैदा हो सकती है। क्योंकि सबके एक सीमा होती है, दोनों के पास ऐसी शक्तियां हैं, अणु शक्ति, जिससे दोनों देश ध्वस्त हो सकते हैं। उसमें कोई तसल्ली नहीं मिल सकती कि भाई उनको तो हम ध्वस्त हो गए, परंतु उनको भी ध्वस्त कर दिया, इससे तो किसी को संतोष नहीं होने वाला है। तो इसीलिए एक सीमा को पार नहीं होगी हमारे इस झगड़ा में। और जब हम तीनों हैं तो फिर तो तालमेल बनाना थोड़ा आसान हो जाएगा। दो एक तरफ हो जाएंगे तो तीसरा तो कमजोर पड़ जाएगा। कौन किस पर होगा, दो इकट्ठे होंगे, किस में नहीं होंगे, उस पर देखना पड़ेगा।
डॉक्टर स्वामी, दूसरा जो सबसे बड़ा भारत और अमेरिका के बीच में रिश्ते कायम करने का साधन है वो है शिक्षा। भारत के लगभग 2 लाख विद्यार्थी अमेरिका में पढ़ते हैं, हालांकि चीन के विद्यार्थियों की संख्या भारत से दुगनी है, लगभग 4 लाख है। लेकिन इस तनाव के बाद अमेरिका ने चीनी विद्यार्थियों पर प्रतिबंध लगा दिया है, उनके वीसा रोक दिए हैं। तो क्या आपको लगता है कि शिक्षा का जो हमारा आदान प्रदान है, भारत के जो एक बड़ी संख्या के शिक्षक हैं जो अमेरिका में कार्यरत हैं, अमेरिकी जो विश्वविद्यालय हैं उनका भारत के विश्वविद्यालयों से संबंध भी स्थापित हो रहा है, कई जगह साझा रिसर्च भी चल रही है, तो आपको क्या लगता है कि जो तनाव जो विश्व में उत्पन्न हो रहा है उससे भारत की शिक्षा जगत पे क्या प्रभाव पड़ेगा?
हमें हमारी हित है कि जो अमेरिका जाएंगे शिक्षा लेने के लिए वो मैथमेटिक्स, फिजिक्स, केमिस्ट्री, एस्ट्रोनॉमी यानी मिसाइल टेक्नोलॉजी का ऐसे जगहों में जानी चाहिए, क्योंकि जो सोशल साइंस में जा रहे हैं, मैंने अधिकांश, मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि इसको बंद कर देना चाहिए, परंतु वो उनकी जो रूपरेखा है दुनिया की और समाज की, उसमें वो बड़े तौर पर ब्रेन वॉशिंग करते हैं। और मैं ये कहता हूँ कि उस पर हमें हमारी देश में अच्छे अच्छे लोगों को यहाँ विदेशों से बुलाकर यहाँ विजिटिंग प्रोफेसर्स बनानी चाहिए, परंतु हमारे पास क्षमता है कि जो MIT बनी है, हार्वर्ड बनी है, वो इंडिया में बन सकती है
जी।
लेकिन वो बाबूशाही, दादागिरी, जी हजूर बोलने की आदत, ये सारी जो गुलामी की जो आज भी बचाव है, संस्कृति बचा है, उस कारण से लोग शोध नहीं कर पा रहे। तो इसीलिए मैं कहता हूँ कि शिक्षा जगत तो ऑटोमेटिकली डेवलप होगी लोगों के आने जाने, परंतु हमें वास्तव में ये करना होगा कि जो उनकी जो टेक्नोलॉजी में जो जिस ढांचा और रूपरेखा में वो शिक्षा जगत को निर्माण की है, वो हम हमारे देश में करें। उनके देश में हार्वर्ड, MIT, ये सारा उनकी जो एलुमनाई है उनके पैसा पर बनी है।
बिल्कुल,
सरकार का कोई पैसा नहीं है। सरकार, हाँ, आप हैं और आप कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मांगते हैं तो वो तो परस्पर हो गया, यानी द्विपक्षीय हो गया, उसमें संस्था का कोई हिस्सा नहीं है। पर संस्था को चलाना और वो दिलचस्पी से चलाना वो सरकार कभी नहीं कर सकती।
बिल्कुल,
जो अलुमनाई हैं वो अपने जहाँ से वो ग्रेजुएट है उसकी जो गर्व है उससे वो कर सकते हैं। उसके लिए खुला छूट देनी चाहिए, टैक्स सारे माफ कर देनी चाहिए, तो वो उससे हो सकता है।
जगदीश।
Dr. Swamy, you mentioned about the Biden and Trump.
Yes.
In that context, because the presidential elections is due in November,
Yes.
and the new president will be in office in the first week of January.
Yes.
What will you think vis-a-vis China will be the approach of these two people in the next presidency, and how will it affect India? Although we know that Biden is not being pro-India, but overall vis-a-vis China, this approach of either of the two people, what will it be?
See, in the United States, politicians have below them something called the deep state. Okay. Supposing I say to the Americans that I will help you in Afghanistan, no Biden can do anything to India, because the deep state will ensure, because they don't want to leave as losers from Afghanistan. So what we need to do is that in case Biden gets elected, we should try to trigger this, their Department of Defense, their their Homeland Security, and so on. People who are in that field to stand up for us. And I think the Americans can never go completely extreme. But today you are listening when the Chitpavan Sangh, in my lecture, somebody pointed out what I forgot to, only we came to learn yesterday, that the Japanese have told the Americans that they can't participate in the boycott of Chinese goods. And when the United Nations, they wanted to pass this resolution against China.
Right.
So don't think that even the Americans are going to be permanently anti-Chinese. They, and the Chinese themselves, in order to teach Trump a lesson, they may, if Biden comes, they might make concessions like the Iranians made for Obama. So I think we must be very practical, must have limited objectives where we need the Americans, and the only thing is we want to fight the Chinese and tell them that no, you can't take any of our territory. Sorry, we want to be friends with you, but we are not against you in your other interests, because we are not concerned with it. So that's your problem. But as far as Indian territory is concerned, we are not going to yield an inch. And there, the Americans would like to devalue China, and the only country that can fill the vacuum would be India. So that's why I'm talking about this triangular arrangement. That ultimately what the world will see is their triangular relationship.
Dr. Swamy, I have a question.
Ramesh,
Yeah. Dr. Swamy, I have a question. Yesterday, in the past few days, there has been some development saying that the Houston consulate of Chinese has been closed.
Yeah.
They've been raided by the U.S. And so in reciprocatory, the Chengdu consulate of the U.S. that the China has asked to close.
Yeah.
And they've caught a few people spying. Basically they're calling spies. Some of them were caught. Essentially what they're saying is intellectual property theft and things like that. And a lot of news going around. How do you see that in the context of India? Basically, again, this comes to this of so how do you see that? And I'll follow up with another question after that.
See, first of all, I am not certain that Trump is not doing all this only for the elections. This is the feedback I'm getting from my friends in the United States. That he was talking about pressing the button. You remember when Kim Il-sung or whatever said, I have a button for the nuclear thing. So Trump said, I've got a bigger button and it works. But then overnight, he and the two of them met, and all the old hostility is gone. So I think coronavirus has hurt him, and it has come from Wuhan. So one of the ways to protect himself is being tough with China and create the impression that, I'm teaching the Chinese a lesson without stating so, but the reason is what they did to us on this virus. And then as soon as the elections are over, if he wins, he'll be back to normal.
Okay.
And those Chinese I know say that he's only doing it for the elections.
Okay.
So I don't think you should worry. Think of this as a way on which we can base anything.
Okay. And as a follow-up, is intellectual property in general, that has been a bone of contention for both the countries, in the sense that even though it doesn't impact India to that extent from an intellectual property perspective, but other than that, the Chinese have made a lot of inroads into our communication infrastructure.
I know.
So how, do you perceive that to be a big security threat?
I think the most important thing for security threat is the quality of our people.
Okay.
If you're not viable, you can get Huawei and still, our chaps are intelligent enough to know how they can create countermeasures for it.
Okay.
So I don't want, you say that I must now, that this is China is a virus and I must, what is the social distancing and all that kind of thing. It is not necessary as far as China trade is concerned. Yes, you must know what it is. And where are you going to stop it? You're buying from the Russians. The Russians have all kinds of Chinese software built into it.
Correct. I mean, you really cannot avoid China in any. I mean,
That's right. It's not avoidable. Yeah.
You can buy a component from. I mean, you can buy some goods from anywhere, but there is some Chinese component in there.
Yeah,
so
that's
that
right.
point
And it's cheap.
Yes. And just to add one point, Dr. Swamy, I mean, the news came in today, which is encouraging, that Apple has started assembling its
Yes,
iPhone
that's
7 in India. So that's the start. From I think
Sure.
we
Absolutely.
should do more. And you've always been championing some. We do innovation, which we lack seriously. We're just
Yes,
assembling. We just want being a blue collar back office workers. I mean, sweatshops. We need to move away from that.
All these companies are looking at only one thing, for which they went to China in the first place.
Low cost
Cheap, skilled labor. Not even low cost. Cheap, skilled labor. So you can get people where at 1/30th of the price you have to pay in America.
Absolutely.
So therefore, and maybe they will do it so well that they might persuade a lot of Indians in America to come back and work in their companies here, where they will get the same kind of facilitation as they get in America.
So there's a lot of. Sorry.
Yeah. So the Indians have demonstrated capacity for intelligence. Question is, we should ensure that people become men of character. They do their work, and they don't fudge, and they don't get easily swayed by other people. That's where we are weak.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Swamy.
Yeah. So
I would now request Arvind.
या एक मुद्दा और है डॉक्टर स्वामी, जो आपसे जैसे रमेश ने एप्पल की बात की, दैट इज वो तो हार्डवेयर की बात है. सॉफ्टवेयर में भी जब भारत की जो सॉफ्टवेयर इंडस्ट्री है, it has been growing at the rate of 15 to 20% per annum, and of course a large number of clientele came from America.
Yes.
And last few years have seen that China was also becoming competitive in software to India's software expertise.
Yes,
and now if China-US tension increases, if the hardware does not come, the manufacturing does not come, then maybe the software industry India will gain from America.
If your quality is good, you don't have to. You can compete with China. Why should you worry about whether China will be shut off or not shut off? But what I'm saying is, we have a huge young population who have to be educated. You can't build all the physical structure for it. But notice that there is something called EDX, which in fact my son-in-law in MIT had something to do with, where you can sit in your house and find out what the classroom is saying. You can attend classes at Harvard using EDX. So we need to educate our people. This is the software from that we need from abroad to make education reach homes of people at cheap cost. And that even today I was amazed at the extent to which, on the basis of online, we are having courts working, which we thought was a long way off. We have seminars going on, public meetings, in fact, almost. So I think you have a very important point, that in the area of education and research and so on, collaboration with the United States will produce us avenues which for a country like us with labor surplus will find it very, very profitable.
Dr. One last point. I agree. I think a lot of these things that are happening off late, be it in the immigration side or trade side, is very reactionary. It's all tailored towards the election.
Yes.
See, suddenly curbing down on immigration or putting pressure on that is just to show to the people that he's not, at the end of the day, America is still severely short on skills.
Yeah, absolutely. No question.
in the past 15 to 20, 25 years, they've completely destroyed the STEM education because
Yes.
everybody wants to be a Wall Street. I mean, people who get educated in MIT and Harvard, suddenly they just overnight engineers, Wall Street, because the lure of money. That is also happening in India, but in the long term, it's going to have an impact on them. Like you said, that skilled labor is going to be a challenge, which India is just repeating the same mistake that America is doing. So what is your thought on
No, you see, first of all, the average age of an Indian is only 26. 70% is below 35. No other country has this kind of advantage. And this is the crowd which learns faster, who can become innovators. So I would say let people, let them make their own choices, but motivate your education in such a way that people become oriented to finding new ways of doing things. Because the key is innovation. And India has a long history up till, say, maybe 1100 AD of being innovators of the world. And suddenly we lost it all. We have to bring it back.
Because it's funny, because if you look at WhatsApp, Facebook, one of its largest user base is India. Okay, right. And with TikTok being banned now, it is really surprising that in spite of so many software engineers, so many software companies, that they just don't want to come up with a product that people like, which is very, I mean, I don't know. The idea is very simple. I mean, I call this in my industry, we call butts on seat model. There's how many people you are on a seat. That's the logic. That's it. That's the revenue model that they look for. They don't care for innovation. Okay, if I can put 1,000 people today, that's my revenue model. Yeah. They are not able to wiggle themselves out of that model at all because it's easy money, and they say, oh, okay, all I have more bodies, I'm fine.
Yes, I agree totally. Quality is something which Indians need to learn, but these only comes by demonstration effects. You can't teach it.
Correct.
Where I am a different person because I was educated in America. Had I been educated in India, I would not be the person I am today.
I agree. I see that happening, Dr. Swamy, after spending 25 years in this country. So it's I see why it's very difficult to bring it's not in their blood. It's not in the nature. It's basically even the education per se is just so book oriented, and they just don't know knowledge.
1,000 years of foreign rule. I mean, we survived. That's a big, big achievement. That's not enough. Our mind has been, even then, the core mind is still, as I gave you the example, 1977, the poorest people voted for democracy. Mm-hmm. Democracy is alive today because the poor people voted for it, not because the rich people voted for it.
Right.
Or the educated people voted for it.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. Jagdish ji can close out, or Arvind can close out.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy, for this elaborate discussion on the Indo-US relations parameters in the context of China, and with the hope that India-US friendship will be in favor of India's, or will be advantageous to India despite China's presence, or despite the relationship between China and US. We thank you very much for this sparing time today for this Gyan Ganga series. Sure. Next Sunday, once again, we'll meet at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time to come up with another topic of interest to our viewers. Yeah. And just to inform you, Dr. Swamy, the sources have revealed, Jagdish and Ashish and others, that we have reached now 140 countries. So this Gyan Ganga is spreading. The word of wisdom is really catching up. And though we have gone from daily program to weekly program, but our growth has not stopped. And the people are hungry for these thoughts full of wisdom from you. Thank you very much. It's just because of you we have grown in numbers.
We are an e-learning Gyan Ganga.
Right. Yeah. And looking at this, our Karnataka unit has also started a separate series in Kannada. And Jagdish is the moderator there, and we have Nikun Shah, who is the moderator. So I'm sure other states will also pick up and start a regional channel, which VHS has started on a national basis. Thank you very much.
Bihar can do it very quickly.
Yeah, Bihar has been actually organizing weekly meetings. Weekly meetings.
Is doing wonderful work there.
Yeah. So it's all with your blessings and support. We have a huge technical support for this kind of thing. Ramesh Swamy has been very innovative in organizing this. Every week he is having a new experiment and trying to improve the show in one way or the other. Ashish Shetty is leading the technical team with the support of Swaminathan, Ishwar Iyer, Tejas, Gadgi Rakesh, and Vishal Mehta. Thanks to all the members who have contributed to this. We will meet again next Sunday. Thanks to Jagdish Shetty. We're bidding bye to our viewers. Promise to meet next Sunday at 8 p.m. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.